Good morning. This is going to be a player recap and reflections of yesterday's Dark Age of Heroes Session 2. Sam, Chalice and Chains here on YouTube, is running us in a version of our game system, Dark Age of Man, and we are, in a way, experiencing with the idea of genre, superheroes genre. Which means Sam has created the setting, the world for us, right? And some of the limitations on how what kind of power we can have, etc. And we're instead of the attribute spirit, we're using the attribute fate, right, as opposed to spirit. So there's been a couple of tweaks to our system already. Um, I'm not so much interested in. Well, I will recap it. Completely I'm a little bit at a loss over the last few years as we have been working on this style of gaming. And I don't mean this just as how we present a game as GMs with our night narrator rule set, but I am more in a way intrigued by what's happening as characters. I honestly believe it's a new paradigm for character play, for character for a rule set that does not, for the lack of a better word, does not, again, for the lack of a better word, does not castrate the GM, right? But makes the GM as naive as the players are. But the GM has his structure and his understanding of what is happening, what is in the world, even if it's on a very narrow level, within random variables that must be aware of and fold into the session. But the characters, again, we express our characters in the setting, in the genre that the GM has provided us. Like our game, Dark Age of Man, we say it's the Dark Ages. We provide a whole world. But we're vague around the edges, so players can, through character, have a construct. So what's occurring is instead of the GM world building as we play, through our expression of our characters, through agency, where we are also world. And what I mean by that is we're not so much creating truth, but we are expressing through our character what we see, feel, witness, and that can manifest itself as part of the truth now, part of the world, without creating necessarily. We don't evaporate the challenge or the mystery through doing so. And to be honest, I honestly believe it's a different style. I honestly believe we are playing through expressing character differently than any experience I've ever had. And it's getting more evident to me through Dark Age of Heroes. Only 2 sessions. And but changing the genre, um, oddly enough, has really affected how this feels when I'm in character, immersed, first person, playing the style and the game system that we are asking people to try with Dark Age of Man. And maybe it is partially becoming evident to me because we don't have such a defined setting in Dark Age of Heroes. And and maybe it's because I understand the world I live in better than I understand the Dark Ages, right? So it's going to be easier for me to create a character that understands not only the world around him, but understands on a different level the world around him. So when I'm playing Dark Age of Man, I'm not only naive, I am placing myself in the headspace. What would it be like to live in Dredgewater in 869? And I've never left this 10 miles square radius, right? If I'm playing a peasant from Dredgewater. If I'm playing an alderman from London, I'm going to express a broader view of the world, right? I'm from the big city south of London, from London, and I'm bringing that capacity of information to the lowly residents of Dredgewater if I happen to be an alderman traveling, right? Or a merchant who's been around the world traveling, like I was in Sam's last set of chronicles of Dark Age of Man. And again, we worked on these style game ideas for years before we actually in writing kind of put it in words, right? It's not easy to qualify a game style into a rule set, right? It's not easy to qualify. It's easy to make up random tables and say, yeah, dude, just roll random tables. That's what we've been doing that in D&D for years. Yeah, okay, right. But we're talking about true character expression, true player agency. And that means a little more freedom to what I say, like a character in a film or in a story, as I describe my opening the drawer, taking out the phone, popping out the SIM chip, and soldering the SIM chip, and then right, all of that is true, and it is quite literally my take on the world around me. The drawer of the thing, the fact that I'm popping out a SIM chip of a phone, even if it's not perfectly accurate, and I'm soldering a SIM chip, putting it in the phone. I'm gonna jack it into a laptop, and I'm gonna hijack a satellite with my own SIM number, and I'm gonna create a cell phone that is unique and uniquely safe by bouncing my signal around satellites, so they can never track me. Right? I'm not going through Verizon. I'm not right. So imagine this is my mind of three. So in our world, four is the highest mind you can have. I'm not like a super genius, but I am very close at three in our world. So these tech things should be, and that's not about whether I succeed at this or not. We're still going to make a roll for whether I pull this off, right? My plus three mind will be added to the roll. It is, I am free to control the narrative of what this is going to look like. I don't know whether it's going to work. I'm not declaring it's going to work. I'm declaring what I want and what I'm making, what I'm trying to achieve. And then the role will declare, or if I was a four, with if I was a mind of four with a prestige of two, a repute of eight, Sam might say, done. You don't even need to roll for that, right? Yeah, you can do this. You've done things like this before, right? But we make the roll, and that might find out the phone functions, but it doesn't hide my location as well, whatever, right? Or it could be a complete failure, and Sam says your SIM card, you know, you just don't have the tools you had in your lab, and it catches you. The phone starts smoking and smoldering, catches fire, right? That like a critical fail would be that. And I love this. And we're not actually trying to control story narrative. We're controlling character expression and character narrative. And then we're going to run into conflict between players and between us and Sam's RSC, the world, NPCs. And therefore we get drama. Conflict is not always fighting, not always swordplay, not always gunfights. There is much in the sense, for instance, my character's already had his identity exposed to Sarah. And in this last session, I am I am angry about it because it's completely turned my life on its head, because they also tracked my home, and they were able to. I am now hiding out in another area, right, with my. So Garrett, I come into that game already immersed in what Garrett's suffered in the last session and what's gone on in the last week and a half, and that I'm now concerned about my identity being completely exposed to more people. So now I know Sarah knows. I know this on Ray guy knows. I have been a complete loner in control of everything, living in my little apartment, doing my job, writing my blog. You can imagine how the world has imploded on me, and my perspective now has changed. So when I express this through character, and as I express this, there is going to be world building that occurs, because I am manifesting through the expression of my character a truth about how I see the world. And therefore, some of that becomes a world building too, not just character expression. And this is a new paradigm. I've never experienced this in any other game. I've never been free enough in any other system to ever experience being naive as a player and not in control of story, but it completely in control of expression of character. And I hate to say it, that is, and that again is something that I have to admit is occurring solely because of the style of game we've attempted to share with the world. We're attempting to share through system. Our game is not about mechanics being special. Our mechanics are very, very flexible and very simple to deal with. It is how you are supposed to manifest a character, express a character through space, not act, not LARP, right? But you could, I mean, you could bring that level of deep, delve into your character expression, but play the game literally from your character's view of the kitchen. For instance, like when I say I'm doing push-ups at the beginning, uh, well, I'll just recap this a little bit. My point is, um, I know how it works. I felt it in multiple Dark Age of Men games with Brian ran one, and Kevin ran one, and Dell's run a few, and And Sam's now run quite a few. I think this is six. This is his sixth session as a presenter, and Sam is taking to it like a duck to water. Um, and I got to tell you, the Dark Age of Heroes change, the genre change has almost made me see it even more clearly. How wow, this is even more interesting from an in character, first person immersed play style. And because I stay immersed because I'm in character, I stay immersed because what I vision I'm doing or what I want to achieve or what I am about is there's not going to be the no. There's going to be the yes and yes, but right. But in a level that is not collaboration around the table where we're all going, yes, and I do this to make sure the car starts. And everybody goes, yeah, let's roll the dice on that. This is not a social collaborative storytelling. This is character manifestation and expression, which can help world build along with the world that's there. And what Sam does as presenter is world building. So there's like this, it's not story. We're not dictating and directing story. We are building fiction together, world building in a way, but through the perspective of our character. And I have never experienced it in another game. There may be other games out there that do this or claim to do this. I have zero idea. If they do, no one has ever talked about it in that way. I believe there's a style and a new paradigm here that I'm experiencing as a player, for sure. As a GM, I clearly am because I am made as naive as the players. I only know what I know. That one sheet is like my character sheet as a GM. Dale has his character and character sheet. Bill has his character and character sheet. Todd has his character and character sheet. David has, right. And then the GM has, in a way, his character sheet, right? Mine just happens to be about events that are going to happen, may happen in the world randomly, and the events that I must impart, the problems I must put in front of the players before I even start rolling random seeds, right? The major dilemma, the minor dilemma, the inciting incident. And it is completely different, right? Yet I'm immersed from the minute we start, and I never come out of that icy immersed state because there's nothing in our system to get away. The only thing that would jar me out is when Dell corrects me as a character or as a player, or when Sam might say, well, no, or well, that's when I'm shaken out of my character's perspective. But I don't go so far as to make conclusions. That's where players make the mistake in this style of character expression, right? They make conclusions. I create a phone that allows me to communicate and to travel around, and nobody can track. No, you describe the phone and what you're trying to do. We'll roll dice to find out if the phone how well the phone functions the way you would like it to function. Don't make conclusion. I've created the phone that does the thing. Describe how you're creating the phone and what you're trying to do and how the phone's, and then we might make a roll to see how successful this thing is, right? So there is a difference between whether Dell makes a conclusion as Henri, right? Or whether you describe what it is you're using and we let the dice and the presenter maybe decide what the conclusion is. So there's a fine line there that can be breached and is breached. There's times Dell's breached that line. There's times I've probably breached that line because this is a new paradigm. It's a new style of character expression. We want to be naive like we are in, say, D&D as characters that don't really know anything about what's coming next, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, I am able to express my character in such a way that it is not just my personality. It is how I vision what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and why I'm doing it. And I get to see my motives to fruition, but I also get to utilize what I claim I am. I am a tech genius. And when I describe I'm doing this, uh, a failed roll might dictate that the tools at Henri's place just aren't my tools, and I failed to get the phone working because of the tools. I have a crappy soldering device. I don't have the laptop that I need here with all my software on it, right? Because I had to abandon all that. There's great ways then to describe how I didn't achieve this with the cell phone, right? Or it could be something as simple as I did a poor job soldering and the phone caught fire, and now I don't even have that device, right? So there's all kinds of ways for us to make conclusions using the system. And this is one of the things I've talked to Adele. There is a system we're using under the table. And this is why Dark Age of Man, people looking on, the way we run it invisibly, because it is in a way very simple and invisible. There are people who would conclude that we're not actually utilizing a rule set or a system. to decide the fate of these actions, these things, and we are fully, but nothing to stop your in character expression, a manifestation of who you see your character as, right? As an example would be, let's say Jose is playing a ranger in our game, and Jose describes his actions in such a way that as he sets up and he does what he does to corner the poachers, and he set traps around. Let's say he's already gone to these things, and then he tells how he cuts one poacher off and knocks him unconscious, and then turns the other poachers toward the traps that he set in the woods, and he is manifesting almost through a collage of images, like in a movie, how his character prepped this ambush of the poachers. And now we're going to make some rolls that might lead literally to a combat as one poacher escapes the traps and he's left with one poacher. This part, he didn't, he knew he might have to handle one of these guys face to face with swords or something like that. And the die roll might dictate Calamity from the get-go in his plan of what he was trying to express through his characters, how he would go about dealing with these 6 poachers by himself. Calamity could ensue, right, on a first failed roll. Calamity could ensue, on a second, or Calamity could, or plans could be thwarted by an RSC roll, Ogre, right? And all of a sudden, as he's fighting with these poachers, trying to drive these poachers into his traps, and Ogre, stumbles through the woods and smacks a few of these poachers, away. And now he's standing face to face with an ogre, right? We have an RSC that shows up, and the poachers become a meaningless. The poachers become second to the ogre standing before Jose's ranger. Right? So, but there is this. So you're in character, and how you describe who you are, what you're doing, and that matters. We don't make conclusions about the results. That's the place players aren't allowed to go. They can't make a conclusion about the thing. And again, because this is a new style and a new paradigm, and we are really all learning it. I mean, we haven't yet mastered it. Although we've written a rule book and we're trying to even writing it. Could I today write a rule book that might quantify this better in actual text? Maybe the next game that we use our system like this style like this for our next game, I'll be better at describing how this paradigm should work between every player at the table, including the presenter player, right? But the recap, right? Second session, the end of the last session, we rescue Sarah from some evildoers. Both evildoers in the session got away. One of them we now know is we witnessed he was a superhero. The other one is just a high level. He's just a thug. He's a thug that wants to get some fancy weapon that's very dangerous activated, and he needed me to do it. He used Sarah to draw me in. We were able to rescue Sarah, but they escaped. And more importantly, though, somebody has exposed not my identity, but they have found my headquarters, my apartment. They had hacked and infiltrated all of my devices, etc. And I had to abandon everything. And we had a code 606 or whatever, packed everything up, moved in with Henri. And this session starts with Garrett living in the east wing of Henri's mansion in 2 rooms. One room is my bedroom. The other room is my office/work area. And for the last week and a half, I have been dealing with my life being turned upside down. I now know that Henri and Sarah both know my alter ego. I haven't been able to get back to my blog. I haven't been able to get back to my job. And I have been faced with physical threats in which I now know I need to get physically stronger. So I've begun the process of evaluating my current state. And I'm in that headspace when the session starts. Sam does a brilliant setup with a television live press conference with the mayor and very comic book trope, which I love, right? We start off with us, like a big screen TV in the living room, and we're watching this live press conference in which we also witness, they call out for my character to come out of hiding and help them with the investigation, so to speak. They call out, they kind of avoid too much talk about the actual perpetrator of the subway bombing, which I found interesting as a character witnessing the press conference. And we're introduced with a camera swing, a new person, and this person is a girl dressed in motorcycle garb, and she executes a couple of stunts and races away on camera live. That cues certainly me that there's some super agency, and she's either got tech skills or she's got superpowers. So we now have yet another a new superhero that's on the scene. Uh, and we go from that to Henri having a conversation with me. Feel free to use my technology. Feel free to use the phone. He brought me, he gives me a phone. And of course, I am again somewhat, I was intrigued by Henri and what he's about, who he is. So I'm keeping a close eye on him. He's obviously an ally, he's allowing me to live here, but I don't know him that well yet. And I have to prioritize the problems of my life. Henri right now is a means to an ends, right? So I'm not prioritizing learning more about Henri. I'm prioritizing getting my life back in order and dealing with whoever it is that has breached my business, right, and has turned my world on its head. We then I get a text from Sarah. I get a call actually to the man's from Sarah. She uses the code word bananas. That I know it's legitimately a message from Sarah, because the code word tells me this is somebody pretending to be Sarah calling the mansion, right? Because nobody's supposed to know I'm here. So she uses the code word that tells my bots that it is indeed an actual message from Sarah. And bananas also tells us what location we've already predetermined in the city we should meet. So I know them, and I mount up on my scooter and I scoot off down toward the comic book shop, a predetermined location, right? Okay. Dell follows with a drone, keeps an eye on me with a drone, right? So Dell uses his technology again to watch me. He's only got so much control because my phone now is blocking out much of what Dell would like to get from me: voice, biorhythms, actual exact location. So my advent of the phone kind of fucked up Dell's surveillance of me. However, he's got the drone able to follow me around town, which I knew he was going to do. He said, "I'm sending a drone to follow you." I said, "Fine." I'm okay with him having a pair of eyes on us, right? But I only want him to know what I want him to know. Okay. Anyway, get to the comic book shop. I meet Stan, the 19-year-old comic book employee. He lets me in 5 minutes before closing. Sarah's back there. Sarah had told me she wanted me to meet somebody that needed my services as a PI, and my tech genius. We meet. This is this little girl, in her early 20s, 5'2", purple hair, and motorcycle leathers, no helmet. And I know, as seeing the news report, she had a helmet on, but purple hair, motorcycle leathers, right? Known as Knight Rider, as exposed on the television broadcast. I'm thinking this might be the same girl, but I don't know. But Garrett is already saying, okay, I might be dealing with the girl that was in the press conference a few hours ago. She then implores me to help her use my tech skills to hack onto the computers in the city administration buildings to get evidence off a server that would prove that the police commissioner is corrupt. Is a direct evidence to prove some level of corruption. And of course, I make a deal with her. Well, you're going to pay me, but you're going to pay me more for B&E. You're going to pay me for this, but I can do that for you, and no problem. But it's going to cost you more. There's an obligation conversation. Sarah says, "Oh, you can't charge her. How about this? And what do you do for me?" And I said, "Okay, here's the deal. You get me this and this, and I'll accept payment after the job is done. You don't have to pay me now. Pay me after." So we kind of have this obligation conversation. Sarah owes me something to help, and I'll charge her less, and I'll charge her after the job is done, is kind of the deal we make. And meanwhile, while having this conversation, as the comic book club is about to close, she gets a text from her mother alluding to being somebody breaking into the home. And then the follow-up text from that same phone is, "If you want to see your mother live, you better get here." So Sarah looks up and says, "My mother now is in danger." And at that point, we realize it might be right, this and that. Meanwhile, Dell's character, Henri, is doing some investigation at home on his surveillance equipment. He's looking up who this girl I'm talking to may be. That was on the news broadcast. He's looking up information on Tony McConnell. This is the guy in the bowler hat. He uses face capture, and he gets a whole file on this guy's He works for the Cabelli crime family. So Dell is starting to place these bad guys. Bowler hat bad guy is Tony Moncano, and this is the role he plays for the Capelli family. And what is he up to? So Dell does this research before he gets in his, calls his driver, gets in his car, packs up his stuff, and heads out to, in a way, to catch us up. And meanwhile, we have a text, exchange of information, and I tell him where we're at as we exit the building. Sarah and I, Jessica and I, have a bit of a drama, a conflict. As I tell her, go home. I'll help you with your problem. You call me tomorrow when you get your person in City Hall, ready to go, and then I'll go and help you do that tomorrow. But go home. We don't need you here, right? I'm trying to brush off this friend of Sarah's, and mostly because I suspect she may be something more than, and I don't want to deal with it right now. And number two, I don't want another person to learn my identity. I can't have people tagging along all the time. So I'm trying to brush her off. Well, this fails miserably. Sarah says you can't talk to her like that or whatever. And I want her there. She knows my mother. So I say, okay, fine. And as she says something about, what are we going to go over there on your scooter? I wave down Dell. I step out of the street and Dell's car arrives. And I open the door and Sarah and I climb in. The girl says, I'll meet you there. She gets on her motorcycle and, evacuates. A block before, so we exchanged some information in the car. Another great kind of interrogation of Sarah about Jessica. Who is this girl? How long have you known her? Right? Henri getting this information as he listens. Henri already knows Jessica ceases to have a childhood in her records. It's like her childhood records don't exist. Henri has already learned that, but she tells Attell that they grew up together and that she left for a short time in middle school, but they're best friends. And right, so Henri now knows that at least she did exist as a child, but there's no record of where she was born, where she resided, etc. So Henri's piecing together information that even I don't know, right? I don't know that she doesn't have a childhood in her records, right? But Henri does, right? So again, that's meta information that Garrett can act upon. Uh, uh, and we discussed that, right? And a block before we arrive at her mother's house, I get out and I change into my shadow form, blotting out light and basically walking down the street, as I do, blotting out street lights and front stoop lights, etc. I'm walking toward the residence. Dell drives beyond the house, parks, and gets out. He's coming from another direction as he's loading his weapon and he's preparing to shoot. At the same time, Sam introduces another random scene, a gang fight, gang shootout. So he just describes a car coming down the street toward Dell as I'm coming the other way toward Dell. And it is driving slow. It's an old jalopy full of guys. And there are the two meatheads that were aiding the bowler hat. These kind of meatheads are standing in the front, out front of the building, on the street, guarding the residents as these guys roll up. And my character at the last second sees the window down and a barrel of a gun basically come out. And I dive, although I am hidden in shadow, that it's only a light effect, right? It's not like it makes me invulnerable or anything. So I dive up against the wall, behind some garbage cans, etc., as they attempt to lay down gunfire on these two meatheads in a rival. The Capelli, we now know the Capelli crime family has a rival gang that is now trying to make a hit on these guys. Okay. Meanwhile, out of nowhere, the car slams into something. The car bounces, and the front end is crushed. And materializing there, like out of nowhere, is the girl in the motorcycle garb and the helmet. And I'm watching this from the darkness. And Dell is seeing this. He was about to take a shot at the car when my force of darkness blotted out his vision. He lost his aim at the car, and then all of this transpired. So he can't aim. Dell, of course, thinks he's going to get run over by this car, so he rolls out of the way. Once everything goes black, he can't see. He rolls out of the way, assuming the car is going to run him down. But the car is crashed, and we watch, in a way, this blur of speed and movement as she, beats up these guys, dodges bullets, takes out the two meatheads, and shows up as at the same time I'm standing there creating a larger image of myself. That I expand my dark void and I speak in my demonic voice, put the guns down, stop, this is this, your fate is predetermined, whatever. You can't harm the unharmable. I'm trying to make sure I don't, they train their guns at my direct. They can't see me, but I want them to think their guns are worthless against me. And then she waylays these guys while I keep in a way, I have their attention. Meanwhile, Dell sneaks up from behind me, puts a hand on my shoulder. So he disappears into my dark void, taps me on the shoulder, says, "Dude, you need to back away. We need to get away from this thing right now. Who is this woman?" And in a flash, she is in the darkness with a gun pointed at Dell's character's head because she can see Dell but it's like being in a dark closet once they're in my void. No, there's no lights, like literally dark closet, couldn't see much. And she threatens Dell. Dell talks her down. I then dematerialize my void of shadow, and we're all standing in the street. And she now knows that I have this ability. So now my alter ego has been exposed again to yet another person. She has knocked unconscious or literally murdered two of these guys with the gun, threatened Dell, and so Garrett at this point sees her as far more dangerous than anything we've seen yet. The mad bomber in the subway and the bowler hat guy can handle those guys. There's nothing about them that I physically or technologically cannot handle. She poses a threat that Garrett, his flags have gone up. This woman is dangerous. She's got a power that makes her remarkably strong, and she is killing in cold blood, right? Even if she believes it is justice, right? So amazing. I then turn back into my form and head up to the stoop to infiltrate the house to rescue Sarah's mother. Sarah, by the way, had been flying high on coffee, had been jittery. She was in a panic about her mother, and Dell used a agent to while talking to her in the limo. Dell's character used this agent like a cream, and he was able to pat her on the head or wipe a tear away from her face or something. And in just a few moments, it relaxed her and ultimately put her to sleep. So Dell was able to leave Sarah comfortably slumbering in the back of the limo, out of the equation, right? Before all of this went down. And I approached to blot out the light at the front door of the house. And as I'm about to infiltrate the house, again, she turns on her power, super speed power, and she blows the door off the hinges. She's upstairs. We're hearing gunfight. We're hearing bang, 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 bang. And fades to black. Everything fades to black. End of session. So Garrett stands in the doorway. She zips past me at light speed through the door, crashing through the door, and obviously killing probably everyone upstairs or everyone in the building that is holding hostage Sarah's mother. That's what Garrett's envisioning is occurring, but we don't know. Went to black. But I'm doing the math that she has already rescued Sarah's mother, and she did so with prejudice, right? And so that's where we fade to black. Fantastic session. The post again another hour or so after, which Sam recorded. He will put up both. He'll put up the live play and then he'll put up the post session conversation separately on his channel. So for those who are following our system and following these sessions, you want to find Chalice and Chains here on YouTube. If I can remember, I'll try to put a link in the description below so you can go find Chalice and Chains. Hopefully, everyone who follows us knows Sam. Has been following Sam for years. Hopefully, most of our subscribers are subscribers of Sam's. I don't know. But either way, great stuff. And Sam, great job again presenting natural for Sam. I had one observation in the game that you really do need to be naive, right? You have to think on the fly and describe and world build on the fly. You have to introduce, and Sam does beautifully. But sometimes you want to allow the player character expression to fill up some of the spaces a little more, right? And but that's again, our game can be played any number of ways. It can even be played traditionally, and you don't have to really see character player agency and character expression be as big a thing, right? Our game system doesn't demand it. It works best through this style of play. But it was fantastic in IC, in character, the entire session. And again, I'm only able to do that really from onset with a game like ours. I get in character, like Bowl. I get in character, and then I'll come in and out of character depending on talk or depending on knowing the restrictions of what I can do in player agency. So I've got to kind of rein myself in at times. And then something like OSC Jaw, I can be in character because there's nothing to get in the way of character. There's nothing. Sorry, I had a thing pop up. There's nothing to get in the way of in character play in old D&D, a D20 job. However, you are always in reaction mode, and you are always in game system mode of what you can do. Right? Yeah, you can say what you want to do, but there's only so many systems that your character can affect game. Right? We can. There's only so many ways if you use D&D as written there as a character in many ways you can't affect play any way other than combat, magic, you know, and dialogue. That's it, right? But if you a lot of people express with homebrews more. I'm jumping the pit. Oh, let's make a dex and under roll. That's a normal homebrew tweak. That's not in the rules. It's a normal homebrew tweak that most GMs do when players say, I'm going to jump the pit. Okay, how are you going to do that? Oh, I'm going to use a rope. And okay, we talk through it. We make a roll. Or they literally are trying to run, sprint, jump across the pit. Now we're going to have to make some kind of adjudication. We don't want to just declare you fail, right? Hopefully a DM does say, well, you can't jump 10 feet. You're dead. Not the greatest athletes in the world can't broad jump 10 feet, right? You make a die roll, right? You try it and you find a good way to do that. Hopefully you use some attribute or some rule that makes sense for the player, you know, before you roll the dice. But every action in the game like D20 D&D is gatekeep. It is all not your character representation, not your dialogue, not being in character, but every action that you're allowed to take in most games is gatekeeped by the mechanics or the rules, right? And this is where um, when we're being honest about system does the gatekeeping of what a player can actually do. You have agency to make a decision. You might have agency about direction, but you only have agency over what the game allows you to take action, activating, whether it's a skill, combat, bluffing, something like that, right? Okay. But all in context of the scene or the situation, generally, right? Okay. So that's it. I just wanted to talk about this. Uh, our system, Dark Age of Man, as Dark Age of Heroes, as I said to the guys yesterday, feels completely different in Dark Age of Heroes. So when I talk about system matters, dude, and I've talked about, not every system can do everything, right? I waxed poetic the other night. The D20 can't do high adventure Conan. It just can't do it. Not the way I think it should be done. It can't do it. So there's an example of, well, you can't just put Conan in the D20 tuxedo. It's still going to be D20 dressed up as Conan, right? And that's just a personal opinion. I don't think you can just make everything D20. You can't make just everything year zero engine. You can't make just everything ubiquity. You can't make every genre for the thing. If you have a favorite system and you'd like to see genres represented, then I understand as a consumer, you go, hey, I would love to see Ubiquity do every genre. I don't disagree with that. That's why so many people love the D20. I would like to see Star Wars in D20. I'd like to see. I don't because I don't think it works. I don't think D20 does Star Wars the way it should be done, right? As high adventure, pulpy science fiction, right? So that's opinion. That's all it is. Take it or leave it. There'll be people who tell you we do it all the time. Fantastic for you. Okay, my point is this. I'm one of those guys that says one system can't do every genre, right? Well, we wrote Dark Age of Man. The setting and the rules go hand in hand with that genre. Prestige being in particularly a huge piece of this period in history where being a peasant limits you, and but being a high prestige lord gives you much power socially, right? And so our setting has to also support what we're saying the game is, and then our rules have to support what we're saying the game is. And so there's an example of setting and genre matching our rules, our system. Okay. Now, of course, we have these new things like presenter, naive narrator seat, etc. So when you say we're going to do Dark Age of Heroes, I'm like, it'll be interesting to see how this works with superheroes. And dude, because it is a different genre, and because I am in the shoes of a different kind of human being at a different time in history, right? And what I mean by that is, I think we can all agree, for the most part, We have it better than anybody ever has had in the past. We have it better as people in the world than 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Oh, okay, we may not be talking about standard of living. I don't care about the trappings of standard of living. I'm talking about agency, freedom, and playing my character in this modern plus 10 world, modern plus 25 world. The amount of agency my character would understand about history and understand about the city and understand about technology it really changes how this feels through character expression, right? And Dell's playing an immortal. So imagine the position Dell's in the head of this Henri character. As Henri has lived for hundreds of years, thousands of years, Henri has got a perspective on humanity that even Garrett doesn't have. Garrett's going to have more of an egocentric witnessing of the world around him live, right here, right now. It's the only perspective he has. But it's amazing how changing genre and just modernizing to a modern world with modern sensibilities, modern characters, it has changed. It's amazing how it feels completely different from Dark Age of Man, but it's the exact same system. There's an example of why I say genre is rule one, right? System, or I personally like character and characterization is rule two in my foundational experience as a player and presenter, RGM. And third is system or rule mechanics, right? I like character and characterization to be very important to the sessions we run and to the campaigns we run. And I like those characters and characterizations to support genre. And then hopefully we're picking a game where the system supports the characterization and the genre. Right? That's those are my tier of the most important pieces of why we choose what we choose, why we sit down to play session zero. What kind of character? What world are we in? What's the time? What's the technology? Who are your characters? Do they support the genre? Great, great, great. Hey, and the rules, by the way, folks, support what we're doing. We got the perfect launching spot for a great session of role playing. Anyway, thanks for listening. Everybody out there, have a great week upcoming. Bye.